Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we will recap all Week 18 action. We will cover the latest coaching news, firings, maybe speculate on where some of these guys go. We will put a bow on the 2025 regular fantasy football season, and we will get you ready for the Super Wildcard weekend. Jeff, let's get started with the Week 18 final matchups, starting with your favorite team, the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who did we pick and what happened in this matchup?
Alex, you picked the Bucs and I picked the Panthers, and the Buccaneers do their part to win the division 16-14. Bryce Young here, though, outperformed Baker Mayfield in this one. So Baker did not have a great end of the regular season, and that kind of continued up until this point. But the biggest difference in this game was the Panthers rushed 12 times for 20 yards from their running backs, and McMillan appears to have gotten pretty close to locking up Rookie of the Year here. I know some people might chant Abuka. He kind of fell off the face of the earth the second half of the season, and some people might chant for Genty, but other than that, I don't think Tyler Shuck played enough snaps this year, nor did Jackson Dart do enough at the quarterback position to warrant Rookie of the Year. But Bucky Irving had 26 carries in this one, so they did try to run the Panthers to death again. And Otten was the Panther killer in this one. He made key third down catches, and it's really interesting because I have a lot of questions about where the Bucs go in 2026. Like, will Mike Evans be back? Will their coach be back? Should their coach be back? They're just very disappointing. They should have ran away with this division this year, and we're going to find out if they won the division a little bit later.
Yeah, I predicted the Tampa Bay would win, and they did. It's an ugly game for both of them, and I think Tampa Bay needs to do something about their offense. Obviously, losing two coordinators back-to-back the previous 2 years really affected them this year, and they got unlucky with their hire and injury issues. So I expect them to be better next season, but I also expect the Panthers to continue to improve, as well as the Saints with Shock, and maybe even Atlanta could do better too. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I've heard folks speculate that the Panthers could be the worst team in this division, and they still have a shot at the end of this game to win the division. So very interesting news, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about Baker Mayfield having 8 or 9 offensive coordinators in his 8 or 9 years in the NFL. So doesn't make me happy. Doesn't make Baker happy either, clearly.
Well, I think it makes Baker maybe the most resilient quarterback in the league right now. Having success despite having all those different coordinators is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he might be the most resilient in league history because I think he has the most coordinators in league history, or is in the top 3 right now. Darnold's pretty close to him, though. So anything more on this matchup here this evening?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's hop over to the Seahawks and the Niners. We just mentioned Sam Darnold. You and I both picked the home team, the Niners, and we were wrong as the Seahawks lock up the 1 seed here in a defensive battle, 13-3. So very clear that the Seahawks have a really good defense, and the fact that they could stop the 49ers on their offensive tear as of late, that's pretty cool. Walker and Charbonnet combined for 171 yards on 33 carries. So with defense and a lot of rushing like that, it was very easy to hold the 49ers in check on offense because they didn't get a ton of snaps. And that means that the 49ers kind of slid down to the 6th seed. Pretty big fall from grace here because they could have been the 1 seed if they would have won.
I think it's entirely possible that it doesn't matter for the 49ers, at least the first week or two in the playoffs. I think they'll still be a solid team to contend with. But disappointing result for them. And it does show some resilience for the Seahawks that seem to be a little bit better of a team on the road than at home, which is unusual for them back in their Legion of Boom days. They were very dominant at home. So,
Absolutely.
very
And
interesting.
Sam Darnold here, I think, won 13 games with teams back-to-back seasons, different teams. First player in NFL history to do that. So kudos to him.
Yep.
Anything
All right.
else on this one here? We'll be talking about them a bit later here.
Nope. I'm ready to move on and power through. Some of these matchups didn't have a lot going on or didn't have anything meaningful, so we can power through some of them.
You're not wrong there. So we have the Browns at the Bengals up next. We both picked the Bengals, and the Browns upset the Bengals 20-18. I have no idea what's in store for the 2026 Browns. Will there be a new head coach, which we'll get to a little bit later? And Sanders, is he the starting quarterback? As of right now, I have him listed as the starting quarterback, but it's because that roster doesn't have a ton right now. And Burrow throws for 3 touchdowns, but not enough. They clearly got 0 extra points out of that because just getting the 3 extra points would have produced a victory. One was to Chase, one was to Higgins, and one was to Brown. And I don't know what the offseason holds for Cincy either. They could benefit from a new coach. And I think that this isn't a spoiler alert because it's not news, but Zach Taylor holds on to his job so far for 2026. And I guess Burrow, Higgins, and Chase were beating the door down for that. And I still think Burrow should still be on the move, but it doesn't seem like it if he's getting his way at the head coach position.
No, the Bengals are running it back with the same coaching staff and same personnel, probably just focus on the defense or maybe add an offensive lineman. That's really what it seems like at this point. The Browns, I can't see Sanders succeeding in the NFL. He's had one of the worst rookie quarterback seasons I've ever seen. And you can blame the offensive line all you want, but they are about to lose their entire offensive line this offseason. I think they're all free agents, and one who isn't is retiring. So it's only going to get worse, and I don't know how you fix it based off of what they did that we'll talk about later. I don't think it's going to get any better for the Browns. So maybe they keep Sanders and let him get beat up before they draft a different quarterback later.
I was thinking about how wild it is that the Browns have to be in a division with Burrow, who should win an MVP in his career, with Rodgers, who won an MVP in his career, and with Lamar, who's won an MVP in his career. Like, they're nowhere near at the quarterback position where those 3 teams are, and until they get closer, they're going to continue to finish in 4th place. If the Bengals keep running it back, I can't imagine good things to be happening to them. I can't imagine a Super Bowl, which should be the goal.
I think of the Bengals as the Browns team that keeps getting lucky rather than being smart. I mean, they're basically the same franchise as far as I'm concerned, but the actual Browns have a good defense and Bengals have a good offense, and they're 2 halves of a maybe successful playoff team.
Right? But the difference between the 2 teams and why the Browns finished in 4th and the Bengals finished in 3rd is just Joe Burrow. I mean, he's able to gut out a few wins.
Yeah,
Anything else?
they say if Joe Burrow was healthy, they might have squeezed into the playoffs.
Maybe. But do you think they get far?
No.
That's the problem. Like, if you want to be middling and mediocre, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers for eternity. That division
Outside,
is a mess.
yeah, outside of Joe Burrow and their top two receivers, most of their draft picks have been complete busts. Like either that or they're not being developed because their coach is not very good.
True.
It's one or both.
Absolutely. All right. Next up here is the Cowboys at the Giants. We both picked the Cowboys, but the Giants take the win here and they fall to the 5th pick with a victory here. So they fall from pick 2 to pick 5. Obviously, at the second pick, they probably could have traded that for one of the two quarterbacks that are coming out. But in this game, Prescott only played one half. So it feels like the Cowboys was trying to do this to the Giants. Jaden Blue looked good in his first start, 64 yards and a touchdown. And Dart has his best game in a while with 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. Could they bring in competition or potentially let Winston compete with him, especially where it looks like they're going to be bringing in a new head coach? I don't believe that they got better under Kafka, so it's time to look in a different direction. I think they lost a lot of their mojo from Dable to the interim coach. But what do the Cowboys and what do the Giants need going forward here?
Well, the Cowboys need to add a lot of secondary position, a lot of the secondary position, and at least one premier edge rusher, which is funny enough that they let Parsons go. But I think their offense is mostly good. They're gonna need another running back, in my opinion, unless they re-sign Javante. Giants need a lot. Giants need offensive line help. Giants need secondary as well. Maybe a second wide receiver. We don't even know if the Cowboys are extending Pickens, so they might need a second wide receiver. There's a lot of parallels, but Cowboys are just a little bit further ahead than the Giants overall.
Yeah, the Giants have been marred with injuries the last few years too. With feels like Neighbors has been hurt both years, and it feels like Dart has been in and out of the blue medical tent, and Scadaboo hurt his leg. Like their key offensive positions are chronically hurt, and that's not a good thing either. So they're going to have to find some health going forward.
Let's go to the Packers at the Minnesota Vikings, and we both picked the Vikings. Packers were resting most of their starters. Vikings ended up winning. Jeff, what do you make of this game?
So I know the Packers kind of gave this game away to the Vikings. It was a 16-3 game, but the Vikings finished with a 9-8 record, and they feel like the most non 9-8 team of all time. Feels like they should have like 6 wins. JJ McCarthy leaves another game injured. I feel like that's happened 3 or 4 times this season. Plus the season ender last year. Like now I'm starting to question his toughness, but they did get Justin Jefferson to go over 1,000 yards on the season. That was their main goal of the remaining games of the season. And for me, it's almost certain that the Vikings will hold a quarterback competition of some sort in 2026.
I think they bring in a bridge quarterback that they start over JJ like they did with Darnold last year.
Absolutely. I think they regret letting Darnold walk because I think they would have made the playoffs with Darnold.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could get a Kirk Cousins or they could get an Aaron Rodgers next year for all we know.
That game against the Packers there could have been for the 7th seed if they had a more competent quarterback play throughout the year.
That's very true.
Would have made that a lot more fun, that's for sure.
hmm
But anything else on this game here? Because the Vikings are going home, the Packers are going to the playoffs, and next up is the Colts at the Texans. The Colts were already eliminated. The Texans were already in. We both picked the Texans in this one. But the Colts keep it close on the Texans and ultimately fall 38-30. There was a last-second touchdown that made the score look a little bit bigger than it was, but Jonathan Taylor here doesn't do enough for the rushing title with 14 carries for 26 yards. And the Colts need to bring back Alec Pierce. He did get ejected in this game, but he did score 2 touchdowns. I think he was complaining about his 3rd potential touchdown, and he accidentally turned into a ref, and he took that as running into him, and it was one of the weaker ejections that I had ever seen.
I agree with that.
That ref was having a bad day. And It's inexcusable. That should be something that's handled with a fine or a suspension later if they go back and look at it and realize there was some intention behind that. I don't believe there was any intent behind touching him. I think it was incidental. But regardless, it happened. But Leonard here, Riley Leonard, looked like a quarterback gem that the Colts had found. At the very least, he looks like he's a backup quality talent. And that's pretty huge considering that he played that well against the Houston defense, and they did play starters in the first half, and he still looked poised, and he looked like a guy that could play, and that could facilitate the trade of Anthony Richardson this offseason. I know they won't get much for him at this point, maybe a sixth or a conditional seventh, something like that. But the Colts bring back their GM and head coach. The owner is putting them on the hot seat, though, with her words. So the owner is saying that they need to perform next year. So whatever that looks like. But I've noticed Steichen, no matter who the quarterback is, they perform, whether it's 40-year-old Philip Rivers, whether it's Daniel Jones that is signed off of the free agent list, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Gardner Minshew. Like, I just feel like quarterbacks perform in this offense, except for Anthony Richardson. So, needed to say one last Anthony Richardson thing here. I did find it interesting that the Texans rested Nico Collins for the whole game and Stroud for the second half, especially because they needed to win this game to lock up the fifth seed, which they did win, but it was a lot closer than they thought it would be. Here we are.
They rested Nico. They rested two of their offensive linemen. They rested Kamari Lassiter, who I think has been their best defensive back all season. They rested safeties.
Second half,
They
though, right?
they rested.
Which he's a corner.
Yeah, he's a corner. They rested some linebackers and some defensive tackles that have been injured. Mostly those busted coverage that Pierce slipped behind. I don't think Leonard was that great, to be honest with you, because all of those passes to Pierce were underthrown. And I think Pierce could have had a huge day. He already had a huge day, but it could have been massive. One, if Leonard could actually get him the ball in stride, and two, if he didn't get ejected. Other than that, the rest of the Colts did not have much success. So, and that's against the Texans resting maybe 2/5 of their roster, maybe even before halftime, and resting more at halftime. So the Texans, I don't know if they wanted to play for sixth or if they just realized they weren't going to get third and decided to rest people or what. But they did, and they won. I'm okay with it. We get to play the AFC North, and we'll talk about which team they play. I mean, by now, most people already know, but, we'll just pretend that you don't know as we go through.
Suspense here. So next game up here is for the NFC South. It was the Saints, who the Buccaneers needed to win, at the Falcons, who the Panthers needed to win. You and I both picked the Falcons, and ultimately the Falcons outlasted the Saints 19-17. So the Carolina Panthers win the NFC South as a result. But I will say that the New Orleans Saints do have a quarterback of the future in Tyler Shuck. And Olave did miss this game due to a lung clot that he's being treated and should make a full recovery from. Atlanta has some decisions to make this offseason. They have Kyle Pitts that's a free agent. They have to make a decision at head coach, what we'll get to in a little bit. And they have a decision to make at quarterback, too.
Algier's a free agent as well.
Yep. And he was a big part of the rushing attack. Like, we think of Bijan, but Algier might have had like 600-700 yards rushing this year.
Yeah, when I picked the Falcons, I listed Olave as a reason, and a 2-point differential. I think Olave would have made a difference in this matchup. So I think right now the NFC South is very, very equal, all the teams. And I think just a couple things here or there would have completely swayed it, and one of these two teams could have been competing for the division. I mean, Atlanta tied with Tampa Bay and Carolina, who made it because of this outcome. So very interesting. Like you said, Atlanta has some difficult decisions coming soon, especially their cap situation. But all in all, despite them not being in contention to make the playoffs, it was still an interesting competitive game.
Absolutely. And Algier had 514 yards on the season rushing. So a little bit less than I thought, but still pretty big part.
Yeah, still more than most teams' backup running back.
Absolutely, especially one with a stud. That is true. Anything else to add to the Falcons and the Saints here?
Oh, that's it.
All right, we have the Titans at the Jaguars here. And the Titans took an early lead. You and I picked the Jaguars, and the Jaguars end up routing the Titans 41-7 after that 7-0 lead to win the AFC South. Cam Ward does lead after the rushing touchdown in the first, so he disappeared after that with a shoulder injury. So Tennessee will have to make a decision at head coach because they did fire their head coach very early on. And they're already getting a head start to some of their coaching interviews, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the Jags hammer the Titans after that 7 lead, and Trevor Lawrence with another 3-touchdown performance. Does look like they bounced back after that game after the Broncos, which was going to be a down game. And we'll find out who they draw a little bit later, but it'll be maybe the game of the week.
Yeah, I think this could have been a different game if Cam Ward didn't get hurt. I don't know how much different, but it seemed like the Titans completely gave up after he got hurt. And their backup, Brandon Allen, is terrible. And most of the Jaguars' points came in the second quarter. So there was a small chance the Titans could have upset the Jags, and that ended the very first scoring drive.
Sure did. All right.
It's interesting. Brandon Allen's number one target was Ayamanor, who didn't seem like he was getting targeted that much from Cam Ward.
Yeah, he likes DK. All right. Not much to add to this game. Last week of the year, you get a lot of weird people playing. That was not the case here in this next game, though, with the Cardinals at the Rams. We both picked the Rams, and the Rams do win and lock in the 5th seed. The Cardinals have head coaching and quarterback questions as well. And Michael Wilson with another dominant performance. So that's going to lead to a question of Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson. Like, where do they stand with that? Stafford does close out the MVP race, in my opinion, with 4 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions in this one. I know Alex might try to rebuff me, but we'll get to Drake May in a little bit, who only had 1 passing touchdown. So
I'm not impressed with Stafford's touchdowns, considering how many of them were at like the 1 or 2 yard line, where most teams that are successful just hand the ball off to a running back. Like, that doesn't impress me. It doesn't. It's hyper inflated, and I think people will see through it.
You know he's getting it, though.
I don't know that. Every chart that you look at shows Drake May's EPA is almost breaking the chart. He's so successful. So when you add in his rushing, you add in it's just his second year. They won the division. They flipped the record from last year. I mean, I think it's legitimate 50-50. Legitimate 50-50.
I mean, I'd be willing to take you on a bet on that.
It's do you grade based off of analytics, or do you grade based off of stat sheet? Someone looks at stat sheet, they're gonna give it to Stafford. If you go on analytics, you're gonna give it to Drake May. Either one, I think the eyeball is 50-50 because they both do incredible things. So
I don't
we'll see.
disagree there, but I think Drake May's strength of schedule will really hurt him on this one here because it's hard to be valuable when you're playing cupcakes.
I think Drake May's strength of schedule is overblown.
Okay. It's one of the worst in NFL history.
I think it's overblown.
Okay. It's just iron sharpens iron, and if you don't play iron, you can't be sharp.
The New England beat better opponents than the Chargers did. The Chargers barely beat anyone good, and New England actually beat teams that are good.
So New England didn't lose to the Raiders, and the Chargers didn't beat them twice this year?
New England lost their first week, their first matchup
against a
with a new head
horrendous
coach,
Raiders.
new
Same on the other
system.
side.
Yeah. You know what? The bad New England also beat someone week one as well. With Mayo, whatever, the head coach. They beat someone they weren't supposed to week one as well. I mean, it happens. It's week one. But the Chargers beat Denver, what, week three? And then they had no chance if they started their starters, which is why they rested their starters. They had no chance to beat Denver at the end of the year.
We'll get to that game in a little bit. I don't necessarily agree on a 16-point victory there, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on this game here? We very clearly are split on Drake May and Matthew Stafford.
All right, what's the next matchup?
Lions Bears. I picked the Lions. You picked the Bears, and I said there's no way Johnson can beat his old team. He didn't do it earlier in the year. And Johnson cannot beat his old team still. And the Bears lose 19-16. And Gibbs and St. Brown have really good final weeks. And do the Lions run it back in 2025? I mean, we have some news with their coordinator positions that we'll get to a little bit later. But the Bears play their starters and have a poor performance. Will that affect their playoff thoughts going into next week? They are the number 2 seed. So they did back into that.
Yeah, I think this is disappointing, but I'm not sure I would put it at Ben Johnson's feet. I'm not a big Caleb Williams person, and people get so enamored with some throws that he makes, and nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that he's very subpar most of the other time. I don't know why they gave up on the run. They were fairly successful running with Swift. They were very successful throwing the ball to Loveland. I don't know why they didn't get other guys involved more. I thought Burden looked good, but they only targeted him 4 times. I don't know, but they should have won this game at home. Jared Goff typically isn't good outside.
Absolutely. But here we are. So we'll see what they are going forward into the playoffs. All right. The Chiefs at the Raiders was the next matchup here. You picked the Chiefs, I picked the Raiders, and the Raiders beat the Chiefs 14-12. The Raiders ended up locking up the number 1 pick when the Giants won earlier, so this game really didn't matter. But I was really rooting for the Chiefs to pull an L here to ruin the Raiders' first overall draft pick if the Cowboys ended up beating the Giants earlier. Would have been very funny and poetic given the fact that they conceded a lot of the season by who they stopped playing. The Raiders have some decisions to make at head coach as well. And Genti closes out his rookie year with 87 yards on 26 carries. Do you believe that this was Kelsey's last game ever?
Hard to know because I think he's still in range to move up the leaderboard in catches and yardage for tight ends. So, I mean, he could either come back at a stretch run at the end of next season and playoffs if they are close, or he could be done. I don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely. What do the Chiefs need to be successful in 2026?
They need to learn how to turn their top 10 draft pick this year into multiple draft picks because they need a lot of help. A lot. And they need Patrick Mahomes to be healthy.
Absolutely. And they need their receivers to stay out of trouble.
Mm.
All right. The other AFC West matchup, the Chargers at the Broncos were here. We both picked the Broncos. Herbert less Chargers fall to the Broncos 19-3. Lance didn't do enough to warrant being a starter next year, so I do expect him to be somewhere as a backup next year as well. He's still pretty young, so not completely writing him off, but he needs to go to a good offensive position and have some chances to start next year in order to rehab his career further. And Knicks and the Broncos weren't great versus the Chargers backups in this one either. So that could be a cause for concern entering the playoffs as well. Anything you notice from the Broncos Chargers game?
Yeah, the Broncos played a very vanilla game. Just they knew they were going to win regardless, so they didn't really try hard. And you can tell that because RJ Harvey had 15 rushing attempts for 28 yards, which seems like he just ran up the middle a lot of the time, or very bad plays on the outside.
Yeah, he's been doing that a lot lately this year, though. His yards per carry have not been great, other than his splash plays.
I'm not impressed with RJ Harvey.
Me either. Me either. I am worried about the rush game going into the playoffs. I really am. Like, I know we talk about the Broncos all the time, but I am worried about our run game and how much pressure that puts on Nick.
With Sean Payton's offense, they utilize the screen pass almost more than any other offensive system, which is used. Sean Payton views it as an extension of the run play. So they're just going to throw a lot of screen passes. At some point, it gets predictable. And that is a major flaw with how the offense is constructed. And I don't think you can blame that on the quarterback because he has to work within the system and he has to work with the tools that he has. And other than Cortland Sutton, he's not working with that much.
Right, right. All right. Anything else on that matchup?
Nope.
Are you worried about the Broncos at all as the 1 seed?
No. Statistically, one and two seeds win the Super Bowl and go to the conference championships. So I'm pretty sure there's a very strong chance the Broncos or New England
Indoor.
go to the Super Bowl.
Yep. At least go to the conference championship.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a 75% chance the one and two seed go to the conference championship.
right. Well, the Dolphins at the Patriots is our next matchup. We both picked the Patriots. Patriots go on a second half tear. This was a very, very close game in the first half, and the Patriots go on a tear, win 38-10. Quinn Ewers played good, but not. I don't know if he played good enough to be the Dolphins quarterback next year, and the Dolphins do have decisions to make at head coach as well. But Stevenson had a killer day here. He had 7 carries, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and 1 touchdown added through the air. And Henderson does well as well. So their run game is actually performing quite well right now as we enter the playoffs. Anything I missed on this matchup here? All right. Let's hop over to the Jets at the Bills. We both picked the Bills, and the Bills close out Highmark Stadium with a 35-8 win. The Jets have a lot of decisions to make, including around Aaron Glenn's job, but it does appear that he is staying on for the foreseeable future, and the Bills lock into the 6th seed with the victory here. Anything that you noticed in this game other than your boy Mitch Trubisky looking like a Pro Bowler?
No, the Jets are terrible. At this point, I'm wondering if they're keeping Glenn just so they stink next year and have the first overall pick in a hopefully better quarterback draft.
Very well could be. We just have 2 games left here. The first one is the Commanders at the Eagles. We both picked the Eagles, and the Commanders upset the Eagles backups 24-17. Chris Rodriguez returns to the lead back for the Commanders, and it looks like the Commanders are going to be looking for an offensive coordinator. And there's going to be some changes there with the Commanders, and they're going to have to do a lot of big things here for Jaden Daniels and kind of build the offense around Jaden Daniels going forward. Anything on the Commanders before I mention the Eagles here?
I think the Deebo Samuels trade has been a bust.
Yeah, they didn't give up a ton for him, but yeah, I can't imagine that having 2 aging receivers is a good idea ever.
I know Ben Johnson got so much flack for declining to continue the head coaching interview process with Washington a year ago before they hired Dan Quinn. But I think his comments that got released to the public about them being more of a basketball team than football, being kind of a little smug about their football knowledge, has been proven to be true this year.
Yeah, I mean, if he was there, I don't know if they would have made the same moves though. They might have ended up with Drake May instead of Jaden. We don't know what that would have looked like.
Yeah, I think he wasn't going to be given any roster say, and I think that was the main reason why he chose not to continue.
Well, he didn't even go to the interview though, did he?
I think they did online interview first, and then they sent a plane, and he declined to get on the plane.
We all know how funny that is.
We got the last matchup here, the AFC North. We had the Ravens versus Steelers. We both went Ravens, betting on the better quarterback. And through a lot of misfortune in this game, the Steelers won because the Ravens kicker missed with time expiring. What he should have, an easier kick that he should have made. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Does he rebound from this is the biggest question. Like, this is a kick that kills a career, in my opinion, but we will see. Henry has a huge game as well, and Lamar and Flowers follow here. But Henry did not have a big enough second half to overtake James Cook for the rushing title. James Cook did win that. The Ravens, they made some serious changes already, and it's all at the expense of Tyler Loop, in my opinion, because if Tyler Loop makes that kick, they're still alive right now, and we're not even discussing this right this second. And we'll get to that here because the league news will be next. But Rodgers and the Steelers offense came alive late, and the Steelers get to 10 wins and lock up the North for the North.
Yeah, I'm just not impressed by the Steelers. It's between them and the Panthers as the worst team that made the playoffs this year, and they're both 4 seeds. So that's it's pretty bad. As far as the Ravens, I mean the Ravens Steelers coaching situation. This whole game was a flip flop between Tomlin's gonna get fired, Harbaugh's gonna get fired, Tomlin's gonna get fired, Harbaugh's gonna get fired. Depending on who made the playoffs and who didn't. Tomlin survives for another week, but Jim Harbaugh, I think
Brother John.
the current longest tenured active coach with his team, let go. Crazy. Crazy.
Absolutely. And I think you had a Freudian slip. You called him Jim. He's John.
Sorry.
And
There's too many Harbaughs.
there was seemingly a rift between him and Lamar Jackson. The silver lining is John Harbaugh should be a leading candidate to get right back into the market and get a gig in 2025 or 2026 if he wants it. The Ravens, I'm not sure they can go up from John Harbaugh. Like there might be a down step before they go back up, and that is all the risk that you do when you get rid of a legendary head coach.
Legendary head coach, but he's had a lot of struggle in the postseason. They haven't been able to get very far. They haven't been to a Super Bowl in more than a decade. So I can understand them wanting to change. I'm not sure that as talented as Lamar Jackson is, he's had injury history of late that it keeps resurfacing, and he fizzles out in the playoffs, no matter who the offensive coordinator is. So I think with his deal expiring, they should have traded Lamar and kept John.
Yeah, so we'll see, but I think that they made a decision out of haste, but we'll see where it gets them. I don't really think they have a ton of talent outside of Henry on offense, like Henry and Lamar. The receiving core is a bunch of old guys and guys that haven't lived up to their potential just yet.
Well, there's Flowers.
Hasn't fully lived up to his potential yet. I know he finished wide receiver 7, but wide receiver 7 at 11 points per game feels very light.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop over to the other head coaching news here. The Falcons fired head coach Raheem Morris and GM Terry Fontenot, and it looks like a full reboot in Atlanta. What do you make of Atlanta's change here, considering they're hot down the stretch run?
Well, on one hand, I don't think Raheem Morris is a good head coach, and it was a bad hire to begin with. But on the other hand, they finished tied with the division lead, and one change of an event could have led to them actually making the playoffs, and other guys were less deserving to keep their jobs that still have them. So I'm a little mixed on it, but ultimately I think it's the right decision. I just don't know if there's someone that they can hire reasonably that's better.
Absolutely, and I think Terry Fontenot, if I'm not mistaken, blocked the Bill Belichick acquisition 2 years ago. So will they revisit that now that the GM is gone, because that was the biggest roadblock to Bill Belichick coming into the Falcons. Because I remember the owner took him on the boat, and we really thought that Bill Belichick was going to be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons 2 years ago.
No, also destroyed their cap space and traded away the future first round pick that ended up being a pretty high pick this year, and potentially botched the quarterback situation with paying Kirk Cousins a massive deal and then drafting another quarterback with the 8th overall pick rather than doubling down on the roster and getting an offensive lineman or another receiver or defensive player. So made a lot of questionable decisions. And I think he deserved it more than Raheem Morris deserved getting fired. But I understand why they fired Raheem Morris.
Absolutely. And they're very top heavy offense with a lot of first round picks. And one of their first round picks is a free agent in Kyle Pitts now. So they're already starting to cycle through those picks that they had, and they lost their window of having them cheap and young and under roster control. But they might tag Kyle Pitts still, so that is a possibility, but we will see. All right. Raiders fire head coach Pete Carroll after one season, and I think this is the end of Pete's coaching career, and he will be riding off into the sunset. Don't know where the Raiders go from here. They don't really have a ton of pieces outside of Genty and Bowers. They do have the first overall pick, but seems like they need to fill 10 other starting positions before they worry about just being a quarterback away.
Well, they're going to trade Crosby. I think they could have gotten more for Crosby if they traded him earlier in the season rather than waiting for the offseason. They have a lot of young wide receivers that could still pan out. They have a good left tackle. I think that they have a chance to turn around if they eventually find the right coach. But it wasn't Antonio Pierce. It's not Pete Carroll. If somebody likes one of these quarterbacks enough, one of these head coaching candidates like with the quarterback enough in this draft class, then they could hire someone good potentially. And maybe they'll turn it around. But I don't know.
Absolutely, but I don't know who's going to want to go there right now. All right. Speaking of not knowing where people will go to, the next firing is Cardinals head coach, and that was Jonathan Gannon. His head coaching career is probably over too. I don't really see him getting another gig. I don't see people pining for him to get another gig. So that'll probably be his only head coaching opportunity. And then there also will be probably some turnover at the quarterback position there.
Yeah, another guy wasn't a fan of getting a head coaching job. I mean, he was okay as the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, left when Shane Steichen, the former Eagles offensive coordinator, got hired with the Colts. Gannon hasn't been very good, and his offensive coordinator hires have been pretty terrible. Not being able to get the most out of Marvin Harrison Jr. and neglecting Michael Wilson for so long is kind of damning for the offensive side. And being a defensive-minded head coach and not turning your defense around is pretty bad as well. And they had a lot of unluckiness at the running back position, so a lot kind of doomed this.
Absolutely. The only good news is you'll have a couple decent weapons coming in as a head coach. The quarterback position will be a huge question mark. And obviously, you just mentioned the running back being a question mark as well. But we both have some connection to Trey Benson, but we'll see if that ever pans out. All right. The Dolphins weigh their options, and then ultimately 2 days into actually 3 days into the off season for them, they fired head coach Mike McDaniel, and this is after they fired the GM already, so they're going in for a full reboot as well. Tua has a very expensive contract that is most definitely going to be shed this offseason unless the new head coach comes in and falls in love with him and the new GM doesn't want to take that cap hit. So we will see what the Dolphins do going forward. What do you believe that they do?
Oh, they're going to go hard after Harbaugh, but I don't know if they can sway him. Miami is an interesting location to live in. There's no state income tax. You can maybe recruit some players that want to live there. I mean, you play the Jets twice a year. That's nice.
Play Josh Allen twice a year. Drake May twice a year.
Yeah, I just, they haven't been very good since I've been alive.
Not well
I,
run either.
yeah.
So that is probably more of a coaching or a owner issue than a coaching GM issue.
Well, I thought the GM was pretty terrible.
But
I'd come around to the fact that I thought they should have given Mike McDaniel another year, and I'm not a Mike McDaniel person.
we will see. He may replace this next coach that got fired. The Browns fired head coach Kevin Stefanski, and he should be the number 2 candidate to find a job. And the rumor is that the Browns would like to hire Mike McDaniel, but I'm not sure how Mike McDaniel will do in the cold. So we will see there. We'll put a pin in that one and we'll see.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of defensive coordinator, head coaching candidates that could use Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator to balance them out. And I think that would be pretty interesting. Even some existing guys. I think it's interesting that the Bucks did not fire their head coach, but they fired literally everyone else on the coaching staff. I mean,
Bye.
that's pretty damning if you fire everybody in the coaching staff. I think they should go the extra step and fire him too. But
That's
whatever.
what happened to Pete. They tried to fire every coordinator that they had, and eventually Pete got knocked off as well.
Yeah.
All right. Any other Matt Eberflus got let go from the Cowboys defensive coordinator position. Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. Any other?
No, Clint Kubiak's the Seahawks.
Oh yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury is the one for the Commanders.
Sorry, too many Kubiaks and Kingsburys, and yep. So, and did the Commanders also let go of their defensive coordinator as well?
I think so.
Yeah. So there's a lot of changes going around, and Dan Quinn has to be probably considered on the hot seat going into next year just based on cycling out coordinators, which rumor has it it's driven Jaden Daniels and his mom a little bit nuts that they did this.
And there could be more firings after this weekend.
Could be. There's rumors of McDermott being on thin ice. There's rumors of Tomlin potentially leaving the Steelers after the season. He has a club option for 2026. Then he's going to be a free agent in 2027 right now. So he may need a change of scenery just as much as the Steelers need a change of scenery. That might be another one that benefits both parties. Do you think Sirianni's safe unless they get like blown out or something happens? I mean, he is just coming off of a Super Bowl last year, so that would be pretty unheard of to let a guy go that quickly. Anyone else that you would think would be potential this weekend?
Tomlin, Sirianni, maybe LaFleur.
I did hear that too. He's someone out there too that could be on the chopping block.
I don't think that team is that great, and I think he's overperformed with what that roster is, but I get it.
Yeah. I think their biggest issue is the lack of a number 1 wide receiver, and no one's like emerged as that. And I think that it kind of created a logjam at wide receiver where they're just cycling through players on each play.
Yeah, the current GM is not as good as the previous GM at finding wide receivers.
Absolutely. All right. Any other league news that you can think of? Because I have one more league news item that we were talking about yesterday.
Go ahead.
Rashee Rice is being accused of domestic violence and for the last 8 years. And if any of this is true, his NFL career could be winding down very quickly. Long suspension. We'll see. But it does not look good.
Yeah. Well, it's alleged 8 years of domestic violence, which is crazy to me because he's only been in the league for what, 3 years, something like that. And that means it's been going on all through college and maybe beyond. So I'm not surprised by the allegations considering some of the other things that he's done, but it's not a good look.
No, I agree. His career is in jeopardy. And at the very least, this shows his poor decision making
So
pattern.
Chiefs could actually be I thought they were going to draft in the trenches this draft, but they might draft a wide receiver top 10 overall.
Very possible. All right. Let's hop over to our 2025 season recap, and we're going to do our sleepers and busts. And we'll start with Alex's here. First one here on your list was Hunter Henry as a sleeper. And I have you having that one correct. What do you think on that one?
Definitely correct.
Jake Ferguson was another one of your sleepers, and his ADP was 13, and he finished tight end 8. I have you as correct for that. And what do you believe you are?
Yeah, it was very correct, and he did taper off at the end of the year, but I mean, I
Overall
called
good
it.
year. The next two kind of go hand in hand, Cedric Tillman and Darnell Mooney. And they were being drafted in the 50s and 60s at receiver, and they finished receiver 80 and receiver 98. I have those as incorrect, but good swings.
Yeah, Tillman, a lot of it, I mean, both of them, they have their own faults as well, but Tillman's is no one knew how bad the quarterback play was going to be for Cleveland. Like, even bad quarterbacks can get a lot of stats. They did not at all. And Mooney was hurt a good portion of the year. So,
In and
and
out of
when
the
he was
lineup.
out, and when he was out there, it didn't seem like he got targeted that much.
I would agree with that. And we have Zach Charbonnet up next here, which I have as correct. He outperformed his ADP by 9 slots. I believe you would be in agreement with me there.
Yep.
And we have Brandon Ayuk at the number 2 slot for your sleeper, and he didn't play a single game, so I have incorrect due to injury. And I'm assuming you're in agreement there.
I'm going to say incorrect due to head case.
I knew you couldn't resist that. And then you have DeAndre Swift at 1. His ADP was 23 at running back position, and he finished RB 15, which I think is his highest finish ever. So I have a correct there. And you agree with that?
Yep.
All right. Let's hop over to my sleepers really quickly, and then we'll get over to the bust. I had Michael Pittman, wide receiver 22, he finished, and he was being drafted as wide receiver 47. I feel like I could take a victory lap on Michael Pittman this year. He was in the top 10 for quite a while, and he fell out once Daniel Jones went down. Next one, kind of the same thing here, and I'll let you talk about them both here in a second. EDP was wide receiver 40 for Stephon Diggs. He finished wide receiver 18. How do you feel about those two? Those were two pretty good sleepers. All right. My next two were tight ends. One hit, one did not hit. Mark Andrews was being drafted as tight end 7, and Kelsey was being drafted as tight end 5. Andrews finished tight end 16, and Kelsey finished tight end 3. Andrews underperformed his ADP by 16 or by 9 slots. And Kelsey overperformed by 2 slots.
Yeah. And the reason why Kelsey was a sleeper, even though he only went from tight end 5 to tight end 3, we talked about this, is he was going so late. Like tight end 5 was going super late in actual redrafts. So he moved up quite a bit in value, even though it's just 2 spots.
He was like a 4th round pick for me, and he was like an 8th round pick in overall ADP. And it's just like, why is there this huge of a gap?
Yeah.
Good to see the old man could still perform. Hopefully he does come back for one more season, but if that's it, that'll be it for him. Ramondre Stevenson was being drafted as RB 43, especially with Henderson in the building. He ended up finishing RB25, and I will take a correct on that if you don't have any objections to that.
No, that's right.
My next one was Jaden Reed, wide receiver 116 on the year. He was being drafted as wide receiver 48. I'm doing incorrect due to injury on this one. He did break his collarbone and his foot, which I guess his foot thing was lingering going into the season, and we didn't really know about it until the collarbone, not to a significant level. So he got those both fixed, and he has not returned to his form just yet. All right. And my last one here, you're going to love, Javonte Williams being drafted as running back 42. He finished running back 11. So he finished as an RB1, being drafted probably in the 8th or 9th rounds. And I'm going to take a huge victory on that if you have no qualms on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that your running backs and wide receivers were all in the ADP 40s, but your tight ends were tight end 5 and tight end 7 ADP.
Well, you're going to laugh even more. I was going to go over your bust, but you're going to laugh even more here because I had 2 tight ends here in my bust, so I'm just going to jump to them really quickly here. Jonnu Smith was tight end 17 in ADP, and Hawkinson was tight end 6. Jonnu finished tight end 35, which he doubled his ADP, and TJ Hawkinson finished 20 spots below his ADP at 26. So I took the 5th, 6th, and 7th tight ends, and I made 2 of them sleepers and 1 of them a bust. At least I got the bust right. I know we argued about TJ a lot.
You got 3/4 of your tight end predictions right.
I know. But we argued about Hawkinson a lot, and JJ McCarthy, so I didn't think Hawkinson would have this bad of a year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there was always a possibility of McCarthy being as bad as he was. In no universe did I think that was the most likely outcome of him being as bad as he was. I knew that risk was out there.
I mean, McCarthy, for whatever reason, didn't want to pass to Hawkinson. They passed to the second string tight end a lot. They passed to Addison, and they passed to Naylor. That is a very interesting setup.
Absolutely. But Jefferson got his 1,000 yards at least.
Well, that's nice. Mike Evans did not.
Poor Mike Evans. All right, really quickly with my bust, I got Juwan Jennings incorrect. He was being drafted as wide receiver 44. He finished wide receiver 30. Both you and I talked offline saying that it does not feel like he had a wide receiver 30 year. It just feels like he snuck up on that. Feels like Kendrick Bourne had a bigger year than him, and at least I heard that name a lot more.
Michael Pittman, half the year felt great, and half the year didn't. Juwan Jennings had 0.1 points per game more than Michael Pittman did.
That is true, but Jennings played in less games, hence why he finished wide receiver 30.
Yeah.
And then we could talk about the rookies that I had on my sleepers here. I had 3 rookie running backs. The first one was Tre'Davian Henderson. His ADP was wide receiver 19 or running back 19, and he finished running back 19, and so that would be considered incorrect just due to the fact that I called him a bust at his ADP, and he at least lived up to it. Hampton here, he was ADPing at running back 14, and he finished running back 36, and I'll do a correct due to injury there because I think he missed about 8 games with an ankle injury there. But because he was scoring 13.3 points a game, which is actually more than Tre'Davian Henderson. So interesting note there. He might be undervalued this upcoming year. We'll see. And then I had Ashton Genty, who I'm going to take a correct on, unless you have any objections there. But his ADP was running back 6, and he finished running back 13. So he would have been drafted as a first rounder, and he finished roughly a third rounder in overall. Any objections to any of those so far?
Nope.
And then I had Tet McMillan, my biggest incorrect. He was wide receiver 25 and ADP, finished wide receiver 15. So that's a huge bust for me. I just assumed Bryce Young couldn't put up the yards in order to support him, and clearly was wrong there. And it did really help having Coker out the first half of the season as well, because I do think Coker would have been more involved early on. But here we are. We got Leggett and McMillan involved very early on. So I'll hop over to your bust. Your first bust was Jonnu Smith. We've already determined that that is a correct bust. Zay Flowers, man, wide receiver 27 in ADP, finished wide receiver 7, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast. I gave an incorrect for that one. Omari and Hampton, we already went over that he was correctly a bust just due to injury. The same thing could be said for Bucky Irving, who was running back, and his ADP was running back 10, but he missed roughly 6 to 8 games with shoulder injury, I believe. So I have correct due to injury for that one. I have a push on this next one. You gave yourself a correct, but it's Rashee Rice. He finished wide receiver 41. He was being drafted at wide receiver 32. My reason for the push was the 15.5 points per game, which any fantasy player would take when you're playing, but he didn't play enough, so I couldn't give it incorrect for that reason.
Bucky Irving, I thought was only going to be a mild bust. I didn't expect him to be a major bust, but they had all kinds of issues in Tampa. And Rashee Rice, he was coming off an injury and missing time due to a suspension. So I think he got force fed the ball, and just by being peppered targets is why he had a high points per game. But I don't really think he was very effective. And now he's going to miss time next year, if not be out of the league. So
well, now he's a super bust, but
yeah.
Jerome gave you the third choice, which is incorrect for that one. I used Jerome as the tiebreaker for all of these. I think he looked at the points per game and was like, there's no way that he's a bust. It's all subjective, The next one is not debatable, though. It's correct due to injury. It's Jaden Daniels. Finished quarterback 34, and he was being drafted as quarterback 3. So that's one player that would have tanked a roster. And the last one here was Derrick Henry. ADP was running back 5. He finished running back 7. I put it as a push because he finished 2 spots below where his ADP was, but he's nowhere near what I would consider a bust. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say it's a push. I'd say it's a push or a mild loss, to be honest.
So Jerome gave you a push too. So thanks, Jerome, for being our tiebreaker.
Why would he give me a push for that when Derrick Henry had more points per game than Rashee Rice, but only dropped 2 spots, where Rashee Rice dropped 9?
I don't know. We can ask him. We just got to get him back on the pod.
Wildly subjective. Subjective.
It is. So
because when we pick these, we pick them based off of ADP.
Yep. The funny thing is we picked them off of June ADP, and I used the last day of ADP for this. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I can't find June ADP.
That's fine.
For the awards, we're going to revisit this in a few weeks, but just so everyone remembers, for the MVP, Alex and I both picked Joe Burrow, and the likely candidate for this is going to be Matthew Stafford or Drake May, so we're both going to take a L on that one. And for Coach of the Year, you picked Mike Vrabel, and I picked Sean McDermott, and I think that there's still 6 coaches in the running for Coach of the Year. I don't think that there's even close to a front runner. So it'll be interesting after the regular season that people vote for this and what they end up with here. But I like Ben Johnson this year. I like Kyle Shanahan due to injuries. I like what Mike McDonald did, getting the 1 seed with Sam Darnold and a brand new quarterback. I like what Liam Cohen did. I liked what Mike Vrabel did, and I like what Jim Harbaugh did with his injuries this year. Who do you think wins the Coach of the Year there? Are you still riding Mike Vrabel?
Well, McDermott isn't even in consideration.
I didn't put him on the list.
I at least have a 1/6 chance. I honestly don't know. There's a lot of good candidates. A lot of good candidates. I know
Who
you
won
don't think
last year?
so, but I think you can add D'Amico Ryans to this list too. There's just a lot of stronger candidates ahead of him.
Last year I nailed it though. I picked Kevin O'Connell before the season, and he actually won it last year with Sam Darnold in team. So you could win this year. It could be Mike Vrabel. Your
Yep.
turn.
And then Offensive Player of the Year, I picked Jamar Chase, which Burrow going down in that season, not going to happen. You went Jahmyr Gibbs, and it could have been Jahmyr Gibbs, but he kind of
Exactly.
fizzled the last few weeks. We both might be right because we at least got JA for both of our player names, and it's probably going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Puka Nakua, or Christian McCaffrey, or Jonathan Taylor. Probably not Jonathan Taylor. Bijan Robinson. I think it's going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, or
Puka,
Bijan Robinson, maybe.
not Puka.
I think it's going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I think it should be Jackson Smith and Jigba. Comeback Player of the Year. I went Tua because I just wanted to pick a quarterback because it's almost always a quarterback. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback this year. You went Christian McCaffrey. It seems most likely, in fact, overwhelmingly likely that it's Christian McCaffrey. I think we'd both be shocked if it wasn't.
I don't know how it's not. Like, he is like the highest scoring fantasy running back after missing most of last year.
Yeah. Rookie of the Year. We both went Ashton Genty. He is still in that conversation. Tedderilla McMillan's in that conversation. Igbuka is in that conversation. And Tyler Shock is in that conversation. So it'd be hard to give it to Tet because Egbuka basically has the same stats. I think you'd have to give it to Ashton Genty, honestly. He's the only running back that stayed healthy the whole season out of the rookies.
It's true. It's true. But Tre'Davian Henderson only finished 6 spots below Genty in the running back ranks, and he missed a chunk of games too.
Yeah, he also didn't get the same usage either. He's more of a big play guy.
That is true. That is true.
Do we
Ready?
want to talk about the playoff games real quick, or
Sure.
are we wanting? Yeah, let's just do the playoff games. I gotta wrap up. We can talk about the year-end waging
Yeah, we'll
later.
go over bets and standings in the next episode then.
Okay. All right, we have the Super Wildcard primer for you guys. First round buys, Broncos and Seahawks as first overall seeds. Get that bye week. First matchup that we come to on Saturday is the Rams at the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to go Rams, Jeff. I don't think the Panthers will win the playoff game. The Panthers did beat the Rams in the regular season, but that was 4 or 5 weeks ago. What do you think is going to happen?
So I am going to go the Rams in this one, but I'm going to be rooting very hard for the opposite. Only thing I'll say, an advantage here is the Panthers did play Saturday at 4:30 last week. They're playing Saturday 4:30 this week, so they'll have an extra day rest on the Rams going into this game. Don't know how much that helps, but every little bit.
And they play at home, and the Rams have to travel.
Yep. And the weather is going to be very bad. They are going to have strong winds up to 35 miles an hour and a lot of rain. So, anything can happen in a game like that.
Yeah.
Just need the gods, the weather gods, to be in our favor. All right. The second matchup is Saturday night, and that is the number 7 Packers at the number 2 Bears. And the Packers are so banged up that I'm gonna have to take the Bears in this one.
I think the Bears have more star power, maybe a better coach. Their defense is terrible. The Packers' defense is banged up. But I'm going to go the Packers because the Bears' defense lets up too many plays. I think the Packers can do enough to beat the Bears.
I think that's probably a 50-50, and I think that's why they put it on prime time. Next up is our Sunday 1 o'clock game, so our normal window of games. And 6 seed Buffalo at the number 3 seed Jacksonville. Who are you taking in this one?
It's tough for me because it's essentially a coin flip. It's in Jacksonville. I'm going to go Buffalo in this one.
I'm going to go Buffalo as well, and I don't think it's that hard. I think the quarterback and coach have some serious advantage as far as experience goes.
Oh man, Buffalo has had a brutal away schedule, and this is not good for them.
Well, I don't know if you saw, speaking of weather from the Panthers game, but it's going to be below 60 degrees in Jacksonville and dropping throughout the game, starting right around 1 o'clock. So Buffalo is getting their weather rolling in as well during this game.
I think Buffalo is close to getting their stud defensive tackle back from injury too.
Ed Oliver?
Yep.
I know, I've been waiting for that. I just haven't been keeping track.
Yeah, and as improved as the Jaguars' offense is, the Bills' offense has been better this year. We'll see, man. We'll see how defense plays a role this week.
Absolutely. All right, we got the number 6 49ers at the number 3 Eagles at 4:30 on Sunday. And I'm going to go the Eagles in this one. I think the 49ers are just too banged up at this point to get a victory here.
I think the Eagles are a dysfunctional organization that has a lot of talent and poor coaching. And I think the 49ers have exceptional coaching and really banged up, like you said. It's really offense versus defense, I feel like. And I'm going to go 49ers in this one.
Here we go. I do know that the 49ers can be stifled with a good defense, and I think the Eagles do have it. As I did see that last week when they were trying to win against the Seahawks. So we'll see if that continues.
Inconsistently good defense. Inconsistent. The 49ers defense is pretty terrible, but Eagles offense is bad too. So
absolutely. We head over to Sunday Night Football. It's the number 7 Chargers at the number 2 Patriots. Alex, who are you taking in this one?
It's at New England. I'm going to take the Patriots. They at least have their best offensive lineman is back. Their best defensive lineman is now back. Very comparable teams, but it's at home for New England, and it's going to be probably a cold game for the Chargers to have to play in.
And I'm going to go the Chargers in this one. I think New England is a fraud this year. They haven't beaten anybody, and this is their first chance to beat somebody. So they got to prove me wrong, but it's hard for a quarterback and coach to win their first playoff game together. And this is not Harbaugh and Herbert's first playoff game together. So playoffs, teams tend to get tight, and I expect that with Carolina too, by the way. From our earlier game here, is I expect Bryce to play very tight, and I expect that to be in our detriment. All right. The final matchup here, we have the Texans at the Steelers, and I am going to go your Texans, but I do think this will be a good Monday night game.
It's interesting because Tomlin has a very, very good Monday night record.
Yep, at home too.
I just think the Texans defense will probably tear up Pittsburgh's offense, and the Texans are okay in the cold. Their kicker used to be bad in the cold, but the last time we played in the cold against the Chiefs this year, he was fine. So
we will see. Not an easy field to kick on, though. I will say that. It's not even so much about the cold weather. The turf is not the best to kick on. Ask Tyler Loop.
Yeah. I don't think the Steelers really belong. But, my thing is, if the Texans end up losing, maybe they'll fire their offensive coordinator and give Mike McDaniel a bunch of money, because as much as I don't like him as a head coach, he is uniquely qualified to make the Texans offense go boom, basically. Because I think we have everything that we need. Just better coaching there.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else you want to go over in this one? Any bets or standings, or are we going to hold them off?
We can have a polite wager on the Chargers Patriots who wins, because I'm not saying this as somebody, I don't hate the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are a well built team at the moment, and I think the injuries at the offensive tackle position really hurt them.
Yeah, this is my confidence level of the Jaguars Broncos, and I was talking about that weeks in advance about how the Jaguars are going to go into Mile High and win, and you laughed at me for weeks.
You're that confident about it?
I am.
Because I think it's like a 55-45 for me.
I know.
And the only reason I give New England the edge is because they're playing in New England.
How does Drake May do in his first playoff game?
I think he'll surprise you. But then,
I hope so. I hope he plays loose
but as a Texans fan, I'm totally fine with the Chargers winning. If the Chargers and Bills both win, the Texans will get a home game, which will be nice.
against the Bills.
Which we've already beat at home. So
But what if it's the Steelers, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Broncos? Then it's the Chargers, Broncos, Bills, Steelers, and Pittsburgh.
what if it's the Broncos, Patriots, Jaguars, and Texans?
It could be.
You're going to root for the Jaguars the whole time, I can tell.
No, my whole family's Bills fans, so I can't do that.
No, if the Jaguars beat the Bills, like after that point, I bet you choose the Jaguars for the AFC side.
Yeah, I've heard some talking heads say that feels like that should be the AFC Championship game this year, the Bills and the Jaguars, just based on how they've played as of late. Here we are getting it in the first round. It does not feel like a first round matchup.
If the Bills and the Chargers win, assuming the Texans also win, I think the Texans will be in the AFC Championship.
Think they beat the Bills?
Yeah, they've already done it. They have the Bills number. They've had the Bills number the last several years.
Keep talking. Give them bulletin board material.
Yeah, because they're going to listen to me.
They might. Do you know we got 6 new playoff teams this year?
Was it only 6? Because we got the Jaguars, we've got Patriots, we got Bears.
Panthers? Yep.
That's 5. Seahawks 6.
Seahawks, yep.
I think that's it. Yeah, just 6.
6 out of 14, though. That's pretty good. It's almost a 50% turnover.
Well, isn't the average 7?
Yep. And we always balk when we do our standings each year to do more than 4 changeovers.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to give us some motivation for next year to put, like, if Stefanski goes to the Giants, to put the Giants in next year somehow.
I mean, it's possible. Well, I mean, the Cowboys, they didn't make it this year. They could be a team that makes it next year. The Commanders.
True. That is true. I did run the top strength of schedules based on this last year's records. And the worst strength of schedules are the Browns, the Saints, the Bengals, the Falcons, and the Colts. So they have the easiest schedules based on this year's standings. And then the bottom 5 have the hardest schedules based on this year's standings. It's the Bears, Dolphins, Packers, Cardinals, and Chiefs.
That's going to be rough for those teams next year.
Chiefs may not rebound so quickly, and the Bears may take a step down. So we'll see.
You know, Vikings with another quarterback might bounce straight back.
Absolutely. But the Browns is that one of the open positions, and the Falcons are one of the open positions, and they have 2 of the best strength of schedules. So I don't know if that impacts decision makers like Harbaugh. And
well, you also said Saints, right?
That's not an open job right now. But
yeah. But I mean, as far as NFC South, I mean, anyone in the NFC South can win next year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a battle royal for the title of the division.
Feels like it's almost always been the NFC South has like an 8-8 record or 8-9 record or 9-8 record and make it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just since we finished our picks here, the last thing I'll talk about this week is picks. Your weekly picks had 179 right. Mine had 171. And your May and September picks had 156. So you were 23 off the mark in September and May. My May ones had 151, and my September ones had 150. So I did worse in September than I did in May. So I'm going to keep my May stuff next year.
Early stuff before anything changes.
It's going to be May.
Yeah, you know, I would have picked the Cowboys a little bit differently if I knew about the Parsons trade in September. I
Absolutely.
think he made that much of a difference.
No, I totally agree with that. And yeah. I don't know if you want to go over season bets real quick or if you want to wrap this up and hold it till next time. It's totally up to you.
Why don't we just power through them real quick?
Absolutely. So the first bet you had won very early on, Ashton Genty's draft position. If he went in the top 16 picks, you won. He went 6 overall. The next Ashton Genty one was finishing as a top 10 running back. So if he finished 11 or below, I won, and he finished at running back 13. So I took a victory in that one. We were tied 1-1. The half point per reception, Jake Ferguson you had versus Darren Waller I had. You won 147.1 points to 76.7 points, a 70.4 point victory. So congratulations there. Also a half point per reception was Isaac Tesla you had versus Quentin Johnston I had, and I won because Quentin Johnston had 145.7 points to Tesla's 67.9 points, a 77.8 point win. So we were tied 2-2 going into this last bet, and it was a touch count bet between Jordan Mason needing to get at least 40% versus Aaron Jones getting at least 60%, and you had the 40% with Jordan Mason, and I had the 60% with Aaron Jones. And you won the deciding bet when Jordan Mason had 173 touches, or 51.95% of touches, to Aaron Jones 160 touches, or 49.05% of the touches. Congratulations, sir. You won back-to-back years on the bets. And we can go over standings next week.
I won the standings too, baby.
We will find out. Your picks might have been good, but your standings cliffhanger. This is what they call it.
No, I think in the standings there's some I got very, very right. There's I got pretty wrong. Like last year I was pretty close on a lot of them.
Absolutely. You got 3 teams exactly right in your September standings. 5 teams within 1. 15 teams missed with 4 or more swings in the win-loss. And I had 6 teams right, 6 teams within 1, and I only whiffed on 10. So mine were much closer, but you ended up getting the picks.
Well, I think the biggest one wrong was probably Jacksonville.
Your biggest one wrong was Jacksonville +6, Ravens -6, Bengals -6, Chiefs -6.
Well, I'm not going to blame myself for any of those. So
we'll go over the rest of them next time, though. I have them all laid out. Anything else you would like to add to this episode?
No, I think that covers it. All right, Jeff, that does it for another episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy, and with our handle at N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.